Cody is a very interesting character study also. I think he was a great pick, and I think it was very interesting to kind of hear his take on why he doesn't want to be a US citizen and why he actually finds it, like, basically embarrassing and kind of wants to renounce it. But I didn't know it was impossible, so I thought that was interesting. But I didn't know that, there was a whole history about people who would avoid the Vietnam draft and literally called draft dodgers. Even having a whole name coin for it is crazy. But that's the thing, like, they don't really teach you these things in school. So having a documentary like this to kind of like expose people to, the fact that there were people who were rebelling against, war and confrontation and all these things and not seeing how it's necessary and kind of just all the conversations that we have nowadays in which it's like, why are we sending these men, these women, people's sons, daughters, children, husbands, wives, everything? Why are we sending them to war for all these wars that feel very futile and never truly necessary? Why does blood need to be shed to make all that happen? So I think Cody kind of making that point and, being like, I don't want to be associated with a nation that does that is very eye-opening to see. I think it's a very interesting conversation to be had, and I think, Cody was the perfect person to tell it, and I really loved all the B-roll, and I think his interviews were very great, and he told his story very well.
I thought that the cinematography in this was just absolutely stunning and gorgeous. I liked how the filmmakers used past photographs and past footage to relay the story. I hadn't realized that so many men had kind of left, had fled the country to not go to the Vietnam War. And this was one of the first times I'd heard the term draft dodger. So I'm glad that they explained that. Listening to David Cody's story was really fascinating. And I think this entire documentary was very educational and interesting, and it was very impactful. Music that the filmmakers chose too really supported the emotion of the story and what was going on.
Cody did something that a lot of people don't agree with. It sounds like even his own father didn't agree with him being a draft dodger. Be it sounds like he's been lost a lot of his life, but by now he knows who he is, and it's because of a hard choice. Because the draft, while it's still technically in effect, it hasn't actually been used since Vietnam. So I think he has had a really hard life until he became found peace with what he did. It's sad that his own dad pretty much said don't marry his wife, that she could do better. It tells you how serious his dad's patriotism was. But the fact that Cody now is happy with who he is. He's lived a hard life. It sounds like a lot of health issues. And I know he's not the only one disappointed with the United States. It sounds like it's been issue after issue just piling up for several decades. It's and he's very informed with it. He sounds very educated and he's very sure of himself, especially with the health problems and all that came up. That's sounds like he's lived a good life now, but he has to do it off the grid, which is a little sad and sounds a little lonely, but he does sound content in his decisions, which made this a very informative film about why he did. Because I know history always said Canada opened the draft dodgers with open arms, but to show that he wasn't even welcome there and he really is a man with no land.
I've seen so many dramatized versions of that whole era around Vietnam and the descent and the dodging of the draft, and a lot of great cinema has been made about that. So it's nice to see a sort of more individual, humanized version, which, as we discover from watching this piece, has just as much drama. There's just some really great elements in there, and they're told really well from our this POV here, and the whole thing is just pieced together really well. So that, it's a good, steady pace. Really matches up with our sort of our narrator's cadence, and it's just a really thoughtful, thoroughly enjoyable, and informative piece.